Greetings. There's a problem with how we define electric vehicles. I've come to the realization that some people are being misled to believe electronic vehicles are true zero emission. Before I get started with this video, I just want to say I like electric vehicles. I only have a problem with their terrible carbon footprint, and all the while some people insist on saying zero emissions. Gasoline vehicles release CO2 and pollutes the air. Electric vehicles do not release CO2, and some say problem solved. With a gasoline vehicle, we dig oil out of the ground and burn it, releasing CO2. The electric car does not burn gas and does not release CO2, but it does use electricity. And where does that electricity come from? About 70% of electricity is generated by burning fuel at a power plant, releasing CO2. When you charge an electric car, you're burning fuel and releasing CO2. It's just not being measured at your car. The electric car has only moved the problem and not actually solved the problem. So the average age of a conventional vehicle is around 180,000 miles. The average gas-powered car will produce 30 to 40 tons of CO2 during its lifetime. Charging the average short-range electric car for that same amount of time, 180,000 miles, only produces about half the CO2 as the conventional car. However, manufacturing the average conventional car takes almost 6 tons of CO2, and making the battery for an electric car is not quite as easy and requires more rare materials, more mining, and requires much more energy to produce the electric car battery. Short-range batteries, I saw estimates anywhere from 12 tons to 18 tons of CO2 for its manufacturing, before a 375-mile or long-range battery will take, some estimates show, as much as 28 tons of CO2 to manufacture that long-range battery. So the electric car has produced much more CO2 than a conventional car at manufacturing, but a lot less, about half as much CO2 when you go to charge it, as opposed to going to a gas station and filling up with fuel. So the problem that people are having is when they're charging their car and driving their electric car, charging their electric car and driving their electric car, they're saying it's zero emissions, and they're being misled with this misled result, and they're happy with that. And so my point is, electric cars are not zero emission. And one thing I'm not going to get into in this video, it's too much, but the end of life emissions. What do you do with the battery when it's at the end of its life? That's its own problems there. Getting rid of a car versus an electric car versus a conventional car, there's not much of a difference. I think it's a little bit more energy to get rid of that battery. I don't know the exact numbers, so I'm not even going to try to guess or anything. So it's kind of a toss-up. What has the least carbon footprint? If you look apples to apples, I saw sites out there that were so misleading, where they were comparing, a conventional car. They were using like a bigger vehicle versus a really small electric car, and I just don't think that's fair. I think you need to look at a 4-passenger compared to a 4-passenger. And in my opinion, at the end of the day, I think if you want to get a better carbon footprint out of that electric car, you're probably going to have to buy that car and keep it for nearly 200,000 miles and never replace its battery. If you can do that, you may get a better carbon footprint than a conventional car of its equivalent, in my opinion. From the research that I've done, please do your own research. There's a ton of information out there. Some of it I believe is misleading, and I don't think they're being honest, where they're just not comparing apples to apples. I think you need to compare like cars to like cars. And if your conventional car goes, you're saying 400 miles, which is about average, then you need to look at the 375 to 400 mile range battery. And I think that's where a lot of stuff is being misled. But I also say, in my opinion, I've never seen anything outperform, as far as carbon footprint, CO2 releasing, a well-built four-cylinder car that is built to last 250, 300,000 miles if you take care of it. I've never seen a vehicle that gets a better carbon footprint than a four-cylinder combustion engine in a well-built car. So that's just my opinion. The purpose of this video is, I was having a conversation with somebody a couple of years ago, and they insisted that their car was zero emissions, and that's just not true. I think that electric cars are probably just a little bit worse than a conventional car as far as a carbon footprint, but not enough to make too big of a deal about. I like electric cars. I would consider buying one, sure, absolutely. I don't own one. I have the conventional cars, but I would consider buying an electric car. The battery technology gets better in the future, who knows? But for right now, I don't think that they're quite there with the carbon footprint. Thanks for watching. I hope you find this enlightening, and have a great day.